Hey, what's up, guys? So, today I'm going to share with you some of my top tips when you're choosing your Bluetooth speaker. Because after all, you're spending hard earned money, so you should get exactly what you're paying for and have a few set of tips that you should keep in mind when you're buying your speakers. Alright, so let's get started. Number one, when you're choosing a Bluetooth speaker, remember always inquire about the RMS and not the PMPO. Many would sometimes claim PMPO of 100 or 150 or whatever. It comes down to the RMS, which will lead to the ultimate loudness or power of the speaker that you're buying. So, as a rule of thumb, the higher the RMS, generally, the louder and more powerful your speaker would be. Alright, so say sometimes you like the Tagsonic Angle 1. The reason this comes into mind, I'll get to later. So, that is a 10 watt speaker. So 10 watts of RMS. Now, some companies will sometimes market something as 10 watts, even though they are higher than that. I mean, if you own a Tagsonic Angle 1, you know that even though they claim to be a 10 watt speaker, and I've compared a number of 10 watt speakers to the Tagsonic Angle 1 on my channel, you can go and watch, you would see that even if it's a 10 watt speaker, the Tagsonic Angle 1 sounds much louder and much more powerful than its claimed 10 watt output. So sometimes maybe for evading certain taxes, because maybe the higher RMS you set a speaker to be maybe comes under different taxation. This is me just speculating, but now this is the good side, that you buy something which is 10 watts RMS and you end up getting something that is 15 or 20 watts. On the other hand, sometimes they market the opposite as well. Like some companies will market something as 50 watts of RMS, and ultimately some people will do a teardown and they will see that the drivers itself are marked as 15 watts each. So that's like 30 watts of total RMS. So that's where you get scammed. So there is no true way for you to know that beforehand, but in general, it is RMS what matters and not PMPO. I mean, they won't mention that. Maybe they'll mention it as peak power output. So always ask the manufacturer, what is the RMS? If that suits your purpose, then go get it. 10 watts is a good starting point. Anything above that is even better. Now, next up on the list is if the speaker that you're going for, does it have a dedicated bass radiator? If you are not on a tight budget and you want a speaker that has punchy bass, then make sure it has a bass radiator, a dedicated passive bass radiator. All right, because that makes a huge difference in terms of the bass output. Now, a bonus on top of that is if the speaker that you're buying, and this generally won't come with cheaper speakers, you'll have to shell out something around the vicinity of 5,000 or so. Check if the speaker has a dedicated tweeter. Now, a tweeter is a driver that produces only the sharpest and highest frequencies. So a dedicated driver that produces only the highs, it does make a difference in terms of the detail that you hear when you're listening to music or watching movies. So bass radiator and dedicated tweeter. For example, the Boat Stone 1400 had both of these, dedicated tweeters, full range drivers, and woofers as well. So I mean, that made a huge difference in terms of the sound. So you won't get dedicated tweeters with all speakers, but a bass radiator is something you should keep in mind and should go for when you're choosing your Bluetooth speaker. Now, depending upon your use and the type of lifestyle you lead and where you plan to take your speaker, it is very important. I mean, this is something most of us ignore, but later on, this comes back to bite. And that is, make sure you choose a speaker, if you can, which has a robust build quality. So something that is shockproof and something that also has an IPX rating. Say you are the type of person who meets up with friends a lot and you go to pool parties, or say even if you keep it at home and you want to take your speaker, the Bluetooth speaker, when you're taking a shower. I like to do that when you want to listen to some music while you're taking a bath. If your speaker doesn't have an IPX rating, you're constantly going to be worried about where you're going to keep your speaker so that the water doesn't ruin the drivers. You have to keep it in a safe spot. So all of that is kind of a hassle. But if you have a speaker that has, say, an IPX7 rating, which is as good as waterproof, not really, but well, it's almost as good as waterproof, then you can rest assured that even if you're taking it to the pool, it's not going to be a problem. So the build quality, shockproof, would be really good because so if you accidentally drop it, that won't be a problem. And like I said, the IPX rating plays a huge factor later on when you want to take it out for more casual and risky adventures. So that is something you should also keep in mind. Now, in terms of connectivity, of course, it's going to have Bluetooth, but make sure that because we're in 2021 now, you should go for speakers that offer at least Bluetooth version 5. And the reason is because that will reduce or almost get rid of the plaguing problem of latency. So if you have something which has got Bluetooth version 2, even Bluetooth version 4, what happens is if you're watching a movie on your phone and you're relaying the sound through this, so the visuals are going to go first and the audio is going to be delayed. So that really is a distraction. It absolutely ruins your movie watching experience. But if you have something which has at least Bluetooth version 5, so that reduces latency to a minimal. It's something you won't even notice. So your experience of watching movies, or even if you're gaming with this, the sound will be almost instantaneous, and it really makes a huge difference. And plus, it is a far more efficient bandwidth for Bluetooth, and it also technically allows for a tad better audio quality as well. Not a huge, but definitely makes a difference. So Bluetooth version. And speaking of connectivity, also make sure that apart from Bluetooth, okay, this is again depending on how you plan to use the speaker, if it has a dedicated USB port so that you can plug in your pen drive. Because let's face it, sometimes we don't always have the songs in our phone, and we have a pen drive which has all the songs that we need. So it's really useful if you have a dedicated USB port where you can just plug in your pen drive and listen to songs. Now, one thing you should keep in mind that usually the quality falls when you plug in a pen drive. That happens to most. I mean, it does. Like even the audio quality falls or the volume falls when you attach the aux cable. Like Bluetooth is the best, and then it's good for you to make sure that it has a USB port for those times when you don't want to really make your phone heavy with a huge library of songs and you just want to carry a pen drive. So USB port is also very handy. And as a bonus, if your budget allows and you get a Bluetooth speaker that has True Wireless Stereo, TWS, that's good, because if you can buy two of those, you can pair those up and they will give you True Wireless Stereo, which essentially means when you're listening to music, you get actual separation between the right and the left channel. So, I mean, till you hear it, until you get used to such a setup, you won't appreciate how good that is. It makes a huge difference. And you can imagine that if it's a 30-watt speaker that you own, which has True Wireless Stereo, and if you get two of those, it's at max volume, that is 60 watts of output. And if you're watching a movie and those speakers are on either side of you, those effects, sound effects, whether it's bullets flying or crashes, whatever, they make a huge difference. So True Wireless Stereo bonus feature usually comes with a little more pricey speakers, but if you can opt for that, because maybe later down the line you can get another one of these speakers, pair it up, and that will make your experience much better. And finally, the price. So again, we all have a tendency to get our hands on the latest speaker that just hits the market, but don't always do that. It's not that the higher the price goes, the better it gets. I mean, you obviously get what you pay for, but keep in mind the price, because more and more companies such as Port, such as Tag, and I think even Edict by Boat. So these offer you quality at much lower prices. I mean, obviously you can go for the JBLs and the Bose, and those you know how expensive they are, and obviously they provide that level of quality as well. But not everyone can afford a Bose or a JBL. I mean, a JBL boombox or an Extreme is going to cost you upwards of 17,000 all the way up to 25,000. That is really expensive. And obviously the sound is insanely good. But it's not to say that if you buy something like a Tag Sonic Angle 1 or a Boat Stone 1500 or Boat Stone 1400, yes, the quality will not be as much as a 25,000 rupee speaker, but for the price you pay, you get really solid all-round sound. You won't be disappointed with the bass, nor with the highs, nor with the mids. So always keep in mind, I mean, don't rush to get the one that is the most expensive, unless of course you have decided you have the budget, then by all means go for these really renowned brands. But if not, trust me, if you keep these points in mind, which I mentioned, it would do good. And if you're still confused, you can always watch all the ultimate reviews and comparisons that I have on my channel. You can binge watch them and decide which speaker that you want. Anyway, guys, that is my advice. So keep these in mind when you're making your next purchase decision, when you're choosing a next Bluetooth speaker. If I happen to review a speaker, you can obviously watch the review and take your decision. But if it's a speaker I haven't reviewed, keep these points in mind and I'm sure you'll get your money's worth. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please subscribe to the channel and hit like on this video. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.